then that great Stanford win on Sunday. It didn't overshadow the news on Friday, though, that Major League Baseball, like cowards that they are, decide to, for no good reason, they think they're given for good reason, to leave the All-Star game, leave Atlanta, and pick up stakes and not have the All-Star game there. I don't even think they read this bill.
Well, that's one of the top stories about on this Easter Monday. You know, this is the day, historically, they have the White House Easter egg roll, but they're only going to do it virtually this year because of the pandemic. Perhaps the headline, though, for a lot of people on Easter Monday is Lent is over. Whatever I gave up, I can resume to maybe having that glass of wine when I'm making supper at night.
But not before work.
Why?
Okay, sorry.
Okay, thanks.
Let's bring in Louisiana Senator John Kennedy. Recently joined the GOP delegation on tour of border facility in Donna, Texas. Good morning to you, Senator.
Good morning.
Good morning. If you look at these numbers, deportations, and arrests of illegal immigrants in the U.S. have fallen sharply under Biden's watch. If you look at the numbers, let's take last December. That was the last full month under President Trump. There were 5,735 ICE deportations. Now look at February, that full month, that was the first full month under Biden, 2,590.
But just less people coming here, that's all.
Right, right. There are more people coming and fewer arrests. What do you think about that? Why is that? And what's your reaction?
Sometimes when people act like they don't care, it's not an act. I think President Biden just doesn't care. I think he plans on admitting between 2 and 3 million illegal immigrants into our country this year. We had hints of that in his campaign.
Future dreamers.
True, but also just letting people in illegally at the border. This is dangerous. The Border Patrol told me that at least people from 55 countries have already come in.
Wow.
People from all over the world are getting to Mexico and flooding in. Number two, it's very expensive. Many of these folks will go on welfare, particularly if they can make it to a sanctuary city or a blue state. It puts down the vice president. I know her well. I respect her, but she believes in open borders. Making her the illegal immigration czar, as I said the other day, is like making El Chapo the drug czar.
Right. And by the way, they are sending a special envoy to the Northern Triangle areas of Guatemala and El Salvador between April 5th and 8th. Take your time. And Kate Tobin, the Senior Director for Trans-Border Security, will be one of there, as well as another guy named Envoy Zuniga. So they're going. Why is it taking 2 months? And why isn't the vice president going? Evidently, she was working the phones over the weekend. Is that enough?
Well, if all they do is take billions and billions of American taxpayer money and give it to the governments of the Northern Triangle countries, they might as well throw it in the dirt, because that money's going to be stolen. It'll never make it to the people. Now, if what the envoy is going to do is talk to the governments in the Northern Triangle countries and say, look, we can do this the easy way or the hard way. We're going to set up processing centers in your country and allow people to apply for refugee status in your country and adjudicate the claims there. They're not coming into the United States. We're going to make you an offer you can't refuse. That's what Trump did. But I don't think that's what they're going to do. I think they're just going to take billions of taxpayer money and give it to the authoritarian governments, which are going to promptly steal it.
Oh, man. You know, the biggest thing on your agenda for right now in the Senate and the Congress as well, Senator, is the fact that it looks like this gigantic $2 trillion infrastructure bill is heading your way. The big question is, will any Republicans be on board? The $2 trillion train? Probably not. But Pete Buttigieg, the Secretary of Transportation, listen to this, Senator. He says the boss wants this done fast.
Know that this is entering a legislative process where we're going to be hearing from both sides of the aisle, and I think you'll find the president's got a very open mind. But time is of the essence, so we'll look at these ideas on how to pay for it. We'll look at ideas on where the investments ought to be too. But the president is hoping for major progress from Congress before Memorial Day, and we can't allow this thing to just keep dragging on because the need is there today.
And speaking of today, Senator, today in the New York Post on the op-ed page, they talk about how the single biggest line item of money in that particular infrastructure bill, not for bridges or tunnels, but it's for millions of healthcare jobs because there's strings attached to it. The White House memo of understanding says the money will be tied to healthcare workers getting the ability to collectively bargain. In other words, you want the money, you're going to have to join a union.
Well, let's leave La La Land for a while. This is not an infrastructure bill. If you think this is an infrastructure bill, you probably better stay away from sharp objects. This is a Green New Deal, welfare, and reparations bill. Being charitable, less than 10% of the bill is devoted to infrastructure, and we don't even know what the projects are. You know who picks the projects? Speaker Pelosi, Senator Schumer, and President Biden. Now, one need not be clairvoyant to see that their projects are going to end up in New York and California and blue states. So there you have it. You've got a political slush fund. And you can say that, and maybe even believe that 2 plus 2 equals 5, but just because you say it doesn't make it true. The correct answer is 4. This is not an infrastructure bill. It's also outrageously expensive. There is no free lunch. You don't get one now. They're going to pay for it through more debt and higher taxes.
Let's talk about what's happening.
Now, will they work with us? I hope so. I hope they do.
They say they will.
I'll do old man backflips if they'll work with us, but I don't have my hopes up.
They say that they will. We'll see. MLB moving the All-Star game out of Atlanta because they changed the election laws there. It's going to cost that area about $10 million, according to the tourism industry. I'm sorry, $100 million. Yeah. And this is Cecilia Rousey. Listen to this. She's talking about the economic impact. She's a Biden advisor.
It's a little early to judge what the economic impact will be, but they have a right to their dissatisfaction with the laws. There is undoubtedly going to be a cost. I think that was the point that the Major League Baseball was trying to make. Major League Baseball will, however, move its game, and workers at another place will benefit. You know, that is exactly the message that Major League Baseball was trying to send. These companies have the opportunity to vote with their feet, and they're using their economic power to express their dissatisfaction.
The reason they're doing that is Joe Biden is out there spreading misinformation. Some people are calling him a liar. Listen to Chris Christie.
Joe Biden's broken his own rule, and now he's lying to the American people, George. He's lying about this bill. He's lying to the American people about it to cause the raging fire he said he was going to put out. I'm very disappointed.
What's so wrong with having to show a voter ID to vote in person? What's wrong with and to vote if you're mailing in your ballot? And what's wrong with having signature verification? Isn't that fair?
I think it is. Number one, I think President Biden has done the country a great disservice by not telling the truth about this bill. I mean, either he's lying or he's lost. Number two, the commissioner of baseball is Mr. Ron Manfred. He's just made baseball a blue sport.
He did.
I don't get it. I don't get it. I mean, his attendance is declining. If it were my job, I would try to be adding fans. The only thing I can figure is that Mr. Manfred is part of the what I call the managerial elite, the entrenched politicians, the bureaucrats, the certain members of the media, the academics, the corporate phonies who think they're smarter and more virtuous than the people they make money off of. And as best I can tell, Mr. Manfred just wet his pants in delight at the chance to virtue signal here, and all he did was make Major League Baseball a blue sport. I don't get it.
Right, and watch them move it to New York, where it's even more restricted than Georgia's changes. It's unbelievable. He didn't read the bill. It's lazy and it's cowardly for them to do that. But here's the other.
What?
Go ahead.
Sure. I was just going to say what my Democratic friends want. They want two things. They want no ID, and they want to be able to ballot harvest. Well,
tough.
You know, that's going to undermine the integrity or the perception of the integrity of every single election. We will go through every time what we went through last time. And it's just foolish. I don't understand. And if you don't agree that you shouldn't have to, that you should have to present an ID, you're a racist.
And by the way,
I mean, is it a race?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I'm just saying to compare it to Jim Crow, a Democratic initiative from the 1880s is so outlandish. Jim Crow on steroids? Jim Crow had a poll tax, a literacy tax. It was a way to keep African Americans from voting or minorities from voting, period. This has nothing to do with that. And it brings out
my
water.
Guess is,
go ahead.
Mm-hmm. I was just going to say, my guess is when you go to pick up your season tickets for Major League Baseball, if anybody's still buying them, at least on my side of the aisle, my guess is you have to show an ID.
Yep.
You do.
A final topic for you, Senator. For months before the election, the mainstream media would not touch the Hunter Biden story. And just in the month before the election, there's that story about the laptop showing up at the shop in Delaware. New York Post broke the story. Fox News broke the story as well. Hunter Biden was asked about it by CBS over the last couple of days after everybody on his side said, you know what, that's just Russian disinformation, not true. Now, as it turns out, Hunter says, yeah, could be mine. Listen.
Was that your laptop?
For real, I don't know.
I know, but you know
that's
this.
I really don't know.
Okay.
The answer is
You don't know
truthful
yes
answer.
or no if the laptop
I don't have
was
any
yours.
idea. I have no idea.
So
whether
could have been yours.
Of course, certainly. There could be a laptop out there that was stolen from me. There could be that I was hacked. It could be that it was Russian intelligence. It could be that it was stolen from me.
So, Senator, now he says it certainly could be my laptop, but before the election it was, nope, it certainly was Russian disinformation.
Well, I don't know, Mr. Hunter Biden. I do know that his father allowed Mr. Hunter Biden to send the message to the world that American foreign policy can be bought like a sack of potatoes, and that's wrong. Number two, I don't know why he has released this book right now. One point of view is that he's trying to send a message that he is not responsible for anything that he does because he's an addict. And that's an interesting point of view. I do believe addiction is a crippling disease, but I also believe in free will and personal responsibility. Mm-hmm. And I don't think you can be absolved of everything you do wrong in this world, no matter whether you're an addict or not, or how you're feeling, or what somebody did to you, because you say it's not my fault, I can't help it. I don't think that's a defense in a court of law.
Does this help his dad?
I don't see how, but I think it probably helps him. I mean, the impression that I kind of get from, haven't read the book, I want to be fair, but I've read excerpts and I've seen the news reports, and I think the message that he's trying to send is, I'm not responsible for anything that I do because I like I like cocaine and heroin.
Yeah.
And that's a pretty honest view of the world, in my judgment. It certainly has nothing to do with personal responsibility.
But again, he's trying to make a profit off it, isn't it?
Yes, you know, he's going to make a lot of money.
Well, let's see if any of that stuff turns out to be bad for him. A book comes out, I think, tomorrow. Senator, thanks for coming out today.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you. Okay, Jillian has some headlines for us. Hey, Jillian.
Good morning. That's right. And we begin with this. Happening today, the man accused of killing 4 people, including a 9-year-old, at a Southern California office complex will be arraigned. The suspect will appear from his hospital bed. Last week, he was charged with multiple counts of murder and attempted murder charges. The suspect was shot by police and remains in critical condition. A Portland school weighs whether having a tree as its mascot is racist. The high school was on track to change its mascot to the evergreens, but the vote was postponed over concerns that trees are tied to lynching. A vote is set for next Tuesday. The high school was just renamed to honor famous black journalist Ida B. Wells Barnett. It was originally named after President Woodrow Wilson. A California veteran with disabilities is reunited with his service dog after his car is stolen. Mark Lipton jumped on the hood of the vehicle to try to rescue Bella as the thief took off. Days later, someone who saw a news report about the theft recognized the dog in a Facebook post. Lipton, who suffers from PTSD, was overcome with emotion when they were finally reunited. Look at that sweet photo. I'll send it back to you.
That's great.
All right, Jillian, thanks. Meanwhile, straight ahead in our show, 18 minutes after the hour, still ahead, AOC has a lot of campaign cash to throw around, but some Democrats are saying, no, thank you. Could this be the start of a move to the middle? Plus, I was able to fly to Texas and speak with Land Commissioner George P. Bush, the latest member of the Bush dynasty to make waves in the Lone Star State, what he said about his political plans, and more. Oil and gas coming your way.
He might be one of the most outspoken Democrats, but some members of her own party don't want her support. At least 3 House Democrats have reportedly returned or declined donations from AOC's campaign. So is this a sign that the party is ready to reject the far left before the midterms? Here to discuss this, publisher of The Federalist and Fox News contributor Ben Domenech. Hey, Ben.
Good morning. Good to be with you.
Why do you think they're returning those donations?
Look, I think that in this last go-round in 2020, we really saw how much Republicans were invested in trying to make the entire Democratic Party stand up beside the Democrat socialists who become such a loud voice within their coalition. And this is not in any way an accurate frame. I mean, when you look at the policies that are being put in place, they frequently are the ones that are being advocated for by AOC and by others who share a lot of her socialist-minded views. This is something, though, that they've been able to separate in part because of the reputation of someone like Joe Biden as being someone who was not particularly socialist-minded. The problem is those socialists are now flush with cash. They're spreading it around because they want to try to hold on to the power that they have within, a Democratic majority. And I think that in this case in particular, what really surprised a number of these Democrat members is that they didn't have a warning from the National Party leadership that AOC was going to be giving them money that really could be used against them when they're running for re-election in campaign ads that will probably run across the country, tying them to the radical policies that AOC favors.
Why does she have so much power? Why Nancy Pelosi, Democratic leadership, why are they so fearful of upsetting her?
Well, I think to a certain degree, there were so many moments in the past couple of years where you saw Nancy Pelosi asserting her leadership within the conference, and then there would be moments where the Democrat socialists kind of get together and say, do you feel in charge? And I think that that's something that we saw play out time and again when it came to a lot of different policy priorities. I think looking back, for instance, at the censoring of Ilhan Omar and the whole way that played out, that's a good example of the kind of power they wield within this coalition, and they do represent a very significant portion of the Democrat base, a younger portion that is trying to pull the party much farther left on a host of different issues.
Yeah, those progressive views. Everything's free, guaranteed wages, health care free, they want retirement free, college, they want to pay off student loans, pre-K now they're talking about, even government healthy food. How can a country ever afford all of this?
Well, we can't, Ainsley, but even more than that, I think we should understand what's going on with this new radicalism, because it's not just the things that you've mentioned. It's paired with an identity politics approach that says that it's going to be about equity, but really it's about reasserting and rebalancing what they view as being policies that should be based on race, based on the ethnicity of the people that we have in this country, in ways that we have not seen historically with these types of programs. It's a very dangerous proposition, but it's one that we're only going to see more of in the future.
And if you don't jump on board, you're canceled. Ben, thank you so much. You can listen to Ben Domenech, his podcast, at foxnewspodcast.com or wherever you have downloaded your favorite podcasts. It is 8:26 here on the East Coast. Devastated by the Biden administration's policy on climate change, laid-off pipeline workers are finding their voices. And Brian went down to Midland, Texas, and he heard some of their stories. That's coming up next.
It's easy to find another job, but when you're the head of a household and that other job you're going to do is going to pay you half as much as what you're used to, that's not quite as easy as it sounds.
Freedom of speech is under attack.
All right, on Thursday, let me put that.
Turn on your microphone, Brian. On Thursday,
I had a chance to fly down to Texas to meet with Land Commissioner George P. Bush. Should be clicking in right.
Uh-oh. Okay, while we figure out Brian's mic, Brian went down. You saw him. He was live down in Texas on Friday. Flew down to talk with the land commissioner.
I think I got it now.
Okay.
Yeah, so I had a chance to go down there Thursday. They don't have a direct flight to Midland, so I stopped in Dallas, did the show. Then we hopped over to Midland, spent the afternoon with George P. Bush, talking about oil and gas workers, also his political future. Take a look. When President Joe Biden, hours into taking office, signed an executive order killing the XL pipeline here in Texas, they knew they were going to be in trouble. But this is Texas, and Texas fights back. And that's exactly what they did with the Texas Defense Task Force, led by Land Commissioner George P. Bush.
We're already in the courthouse in different parts of the country fighting some of the reckless policies that we've seen from the left. So we're excited to bring the fight back.
But he comes out and says, goodbye XL Pipeline. And he says, oh yeah, when it comes to drilling on federal land, we're going to pause that. How does that resonate in Texas?
Well, it sends a very dangerous message to our state. The industry directly employs 400,000 Texans and indirectly employs over 1 million. We will lose 120,000 jobs if the federal lease policy stays in place for the rest of this year alone.
What about next year? What about the year after? Are the jobs going to multiply exponentially? That are just going to disappear?
They will unless we do something about it, and that's what we're doing in Texas. We're going to visit with small business owners that have felt the personal pain of what it means to let go of workers.
We've lost 40 to 50,000 jobs here locally in Midland, Odessa.
What were you thinking when you saw President Biden open up those books and sign those executive orders?
What hit me significantly was the fact of thinking about all of the assets that I had operating in New Mexico and having the conversation of, you guys are going to have to move to West Texas, or you're going to have to go find something else to do.
So immediately that book opens, he signs a signature, and they are out of a job.
Oh, it's significant like that.
Do you think that they understand these are people with jobs?
They don't.
I got laid off the 1st of August, was without work for 4.5 months. I was slated to go up to the Keystone.
It was set to go to the XL pipeline?
Yes, sir. We was really hoping everything was going to pick up as COVID eased off. And then we just kind of got slammed in the gut again.
How?
When Mr. Biden come in and knocked out 11,000 jobs the first day he's in office. I mean, the ramifications for that are still being felt in the industry. It's easy to say just go find another job, but when you're the head of a household and that other job you're going to do is going to pay you half as much as what you're used to, that's not quite as easy as it sounds.
Your message is just let me work.
Yeah, just let us do our job.
So, George, now I'm going to get a chance to see what it's like working on a rig?
Absolutely. This is going to be the best training facility you will find.
Should we go in?
Let's do it. Safety first.
Come on, okay. What is this?
This is a pumping unit.
What are we looking for? Oil, gas?
Yeah, oh yeah. You'll be having oil and gas mixed together coming out of this segment. Natural gas coming out of this one. They commingle into a flow line and go to production facilities.
Wow.
This is just a tiny fraction of what all goes into your typical oil field.
Right, and I was staggered to find out you need workers.
Absolutely, we need workers.
What happened?
When it slows down and people get frustrated, leave the industry, they say they're never coming back, and they don't.
But you say these are great paying jobs, George, right?
Absolutely. Pays over $125,000 per year.
And you do make money.
Oh, yes, yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
George, you've had this job for a while. When you got hit with that freeze, did you sense that there was some people on the left who were almost happy about it?
Absolutely. They laughed at the misfortune of a red state. But the reality is that what it messaged to people in our state is that we need to produce more energy.
You also have a border issue on top of that.
Communities on our border that are dealing with this incredible influx of not only unaccompanied children, but illegal immigrants that are coming across. We're tired of the federal government not stepping up to the plate and accepting their responsibility in this effort.
Matthew McConaughey, he wants to run for governor. He's thinking about it, getting into politics. What advice would you give him?
Well, maybe he needs to continue to think about it.
What do you say about your people who say your party's fractured?
I think there's nothing more unifying in Republican Party politics than Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. After a few years of left-wing progressive ideas, everyday Americans are going to say this is enough.
Does that make you want to seek another position?
I've been privileged to serve as land commissioner for the last 6 years, but we need new leadership in this high statewide executive role.
And you're hoping to run for?
I'm taking a very serious look at Attorney General.
And when would you make that decision?
Well, right now, as I mentioned, we're so focused on fixing the winter grid, pushing back the overreach, working on during this legislative session, but expect an announcement fairly soon.
And as I mentioned before, he's not afraid of green energy. Texas has huge wind farms. 20% of their energy comes from wind. They are second in the country with solar. So they understand the balance. They're all for the environmental thing. Here's the other thing they do. You ever hear about, well, there's an environmental impact. What's the environmental impact here? It turns out their enemies, the green movement, will find some type of grass or insect or horny toad to decide they have to be preserved, so therefore you can't drill here. And what happens is they go to court, and it delay. People lose more and more money while pressuring the banks not to lend and not to invest. They're trying to slowly crush the fossil fuel industry. You know what happens? It all goes to, we just end up getting oil and gas from another country or from OPEC or from Russia.
Did that man end up getting a job? He was out of work.
Yeah, does not have a job. I mean, as of Friday, he didn't have a job, but he's trying to jump on board.
And as for George P. Bush, he might have another job.